Alrighty, welcome to Verkle Implementers Call 24, issue 1149 in the PM repo. On the agenda today, we have 6 items: team updates, number 2, DevNet readiness check, 3, binary and Verkle discussion, then discussing deletions in Verkle, number 5, Pectra impact, and last, if we have time, discussion on Verkle sync and potential spec change to add a hash of the proof to the EL block header. Cool, that's the agenda. We can start off with anyone who has updates, client teams, or testing.
I can go for Besu. So we've been working on a STEM-based flat database, and we have a working implementation of that. It looks like it's going to be a simplifying factor for sync for us, and also there's potentially some performance difference in terms of having to generate the stem in order to do S-load and so forth. But Kareem is hopeful that it's going to be not only simplified, but there won't be a performance impact. It kind of will simplify our flat database implementation. Luis has been working on the gas cost and the witness changes in 4762 in the update, and I think he's making good headway with that. I believe he found what he thought was an issue, and it sounds like it's an issue where we're charging access witness for a code access witness cost on a simple gas transfer. So it seems like we might have at least maybe a spec problem, or maybe that's an intentional thing. We probably wanted to discuss that. I think he's trying to get on the call now, actually. But yeah, that's the status update for Besu right now. We have some Verkle transition work that's been stalled for about a week or so, but we're going to be getting back on that shortly.
Yeah, I'd be quite interested in the performance actually, because this is yeah. So I'll give an update. Last week I was with the guest team trying to merge some more stuff into Geth, so there's been some progress in that, and we discussed the sync as well, and it seems that yeah, we would like to figure out how performant it is to compute all the leaves in as they are needed. So reading S loads, but also just building a snapshot that is based on those leaves. So yeah, I'd be interested in your performance, like if you have benchmarks, because we have to do the same thing. Yeah, otherwise, Ignacio has done a lot of work on the testing framework. We found a few bugs, and yeah, probably Tanishk is going to talk about this, but we also found an issue in the spec. So there's a spec update that we need to discuss during this call. Hopefully it's only a 5-minute thing. And otherwise, yeah, basically implementing costs like NIOTA costs, they seem to be more or less ready as far as we're concerned. So we would be pretty much ready to launch. We still for a new testnet, we still have maybe 2 or 3 issues, but they should be able to be fixed this week. And yeah, I think that's it. Ignacio, you got something else to add?
No, that's a fair summary.
I can go for Ethereum JS. We have made some further work to prepare for the eventual Kastanen update. We are going to work on running the actual tests this week. In parallel to this, we've also made some upgrade to Rust cryptography WASM, while the like JavaScript wrappers around that, so that we can begin creating proofs ourselves. So this paves the way for a stateful Verkle state manager, whereas before we've only run blocks statelessly.
I can give an update for Nethermind. So we've been mostly working on like getting the hive test running in Nethermind. We found a few bugs, and I think they're fixed now. And except for that, as Guillaume mentioned, there is one change in the spec on like how we charge gas for call, and we're continue working on the transition. Like the refactor is almost done, so once that's merged, we'll like start implementing the transition part. Apart from that, yeah, we're working on some cryptography improvements as well.
I just wanted to clarify something about the tests, mostly for Gabriel, that mentioned that he's planning to run them. So in the next, I would say like 1 or 2 days, I will release a new version of the field fixtures because now that witness assertions are working, I'm finding that some tests require some fixes. So yeah, maybe like you want to hold a bit until I publish this new version, so you don't waste time by debugging tests that might be wrong. Yeah.
I can go for Aragon next. I've been working on integrating the gas cost changes and the witness calculation changes. So writing dirty code, I have been successfully able to complete it. Noticed some issues with the state management in Aragon with regards to Verkle tree. I don't know, maybe something got messed up, but I'm hopeful I'll be able to resolve it in this week. So far, it seems like Aragon might be able to sync to the tip for DevNet 6. So I'll have to make some little bit of changes for the next DevNet, and then I might start working on passing all the tests. We in Aragon 3 have already started fully committing to migrating everything to Aragon 3, which is our next version with a different model of state and everything. My current implementation is based off on the Aragon 2, which is an older version of it, although all of my changes are on top of Cancun, not Chapela, not Shanghai or something, which means that I'm trying to focus on write the whole thing in a way that I don't have to rebase again. So that has been working out for me. But moving forward, I think I would abandon this line of code and then start working on the Aragon 3 version of the whole thing. But before that, I would try finishing off the rest of the work and try joining the next DevNet 7, hopefully soon after it launches or before it launches, trying to get it ready.
Quick question: did you solve the issue with the fork ID? Because I realized I dropped the ball on this.
No, I didn't. I hard-coded it.
Okay.
So it seems like why the issue might be, may have something to do with some other clients' difference in how the Genesis file is treated. Didn't want to spend a lot of time on that because the fork ID calculation logic is rather simple and straightforward. At best, it might be a misunderstanding on my end, so I've just kept it open for now. Surprisingly enough, when I tried to use get, it did give me the wrong fork ID, the same as Aragon's fork ID for some reason. But I abandoned the investigation there because I thought I'd be able to resolve it later.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
I can go for Lodestar, which is not really testnet related, but I have been trying to refresh the branch rebased on the latest code that is there in Lodestar, which should provide a more stable base to run the testnet on because of the improved performance in the latest Lodestar code base. So
Right, which makes me think if we are to relaunch the testnet, we need Lighthouse. I mean, Lodestar supports the new Pro format. Lighthouse most probably doesn't, and I think we have Teku also. Is anybody from Teku here? I guess not. So we'll have to ask to find out who's working on this for Teku, because there used to be Gabriel Fukushima, but I think he moved on to somewhere else. Yeah.
I just wanted to bring something up from Besu. Not sure if Gary already talked about the gas costs, so I'm working on the gas costs, and I've found out that we were still using the old key design of having separate balance nonce and whatever. And so I've did some refactoring on the Verkle try library to now compound all of these into the basic data leaf. So that kind of dragged me down a little bit on the gas cost side. But I've finished that refactoring and fixing or setting the gas cost right. I think it will be more straightforward from now on. I did found something on the spec about simple transactions. I've discussed that in the Matrix chat, and Ignacio replied there about simple transactions, where we also touch the code hash key on the origin account. That looked a bit odd to me, but Ignacio clarified that it's mostly for code simplification. So that's it. Sorry for joining late. So I completely missed Gary's update.
Thanks for adding that bit of color. I knew there was something, but I wasn't sure.
Cool. I think we got everybody. Did I miss anyone, or did we miss anyone?
I can give a quick couple-minute overview from the testing side. So
Cool.
as Ignacio mentioned, we have the witness assertions now within the framework when filling tests. So essentially how the framework works currently, we have post-state checks. So essentially you write a test and you assert that a balance is what you expect, or some storage value is what you expect in the test, and it's more of a sanity check to make sure that the test that you have written is doing what you expect. So it's essentially that, but for witness-specific values. So yeah, Ignacio had kind of wrote an API for this, and now we have this within the framework now. And with the witness checks, we have essentially a runtime issue, I guess, with the transition tool. It's not really a huge deal, and it's very resolvable. So with filling the tests in East, we have we're using Geth for a lot of the Verkle calculations that we can't do in Python natively, which means calling Geth a bunch of times, at least the way the framework is written right now. But I guess the next step on our side is to optimize how we fill the test. So instead of calling Geth maybe on average 10 times, we can just do a single call to Geth, and it will essentially improve the transition tool runtime. So yeah, on our side, we'll just be optimizing that.
Cool. Okay. moving on then. Agenda item number 2, DevNet readiness. I think we already understand where everybody is here. Maybe we don't need to spend much time. Does anyone have anything they want to add here? I know, Guillaume, you flagged that you might want to touch on this, but
Yeah, there's actually a couple specs that are still open. Sorry, updates to the spec that are still open. Let me try to find them. Maybe just quickly go over them, and we don't have to spend like a long time just figuring out what they are. But yeah, like, should we support them for the testnet or not? It's 3 EIPs. The first one is an unconditional account write during contract init. In fact, yeah, this one is the one that was reported. It was an error found by Tanishq, and the idea is that we, we instead of when we initialize the contract, we write everything, and this is because there can be a case where you run out of gas before deploying the code, like while deploying the code, but so the contract should not be created, but the account itself is created before. So what we do is we simply, instead of making it dependent on many events that are a bit too complicated, we just say every time you create a contract, like when the contract creation is initialized, you at init time you create the basic data leaf key, and you also create the code hash leaf key. It's covered by the 20. I keep forgetting the amount of gas that represents, but the 24,000 gas. So I think it's only fair to since this is only fair that it should be covered by this upfront cost that you have for the contract creation. But on top of that, it's also simplifying, because you don't want to find yourself straddling across a lot of use cases where the data leaf is created but the code hash is not. So just to be completely fair and completely to simplify the code, I think we should just touch everything at the same time and be done with it. So this is what this update to the EIP is. If you're okay with that, we can merge it. I mean, I don't expect everybody to give me an answer on the spot, but please have a look. It's EIP. Yep, there's a hand being raised. Okay, if someone raised their hands, I didn't see it. But yeah, so that would be just a simplification. So just tell me what you think, and then we merge it, and we have this for the testnet, because I think it's a big simplification. The next one is by Gejinder. I'm trying to, it's just a clarification for the system contract update. I don't think it's a big one. I think we addressed everything. So also have a look at this one. I'd like to get everything merged this week. So please have a look and tell us if you don't want us to merge it, because we would like to merge it this week. And the last one, yes. So the last one is simply, well, it's not really necessary for this test. Actually, yes, it is. It's all about saying, like we had this discussion in Kenya, 2935, so state expiry, sorry, not state expiry, state history contract is is favoring EVM execution, and we're saying in this EIP that's true up until the Verkle fork, and when we get there, we no longer favor system contract execution, but instead we favor direct updates to the state. Now, if you still want to do contract execution, that's totally up to you, but you have to filter the leaves, because we don't, the code chunks, because we don't want the code chunks to end up in the state, in the witness. So yeah, this one should also be merged ASAP. So I can copy them in just a minute, but that would be the three things we would like to merge before before we relaunch the testnet on the spec front, so that everybody can agree. Like, there's no outstanding changes that some people implemented and others didn't. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this topic.
Sweet, thank you. If no comments, we can keep going. Cool. Next up, we have number 3, binary and Verkle. So I have a few thoughts that I wanted to start off with, and curious if what I'm going to say, I don't know, just overall makes sense to people. If anyone has any thoughts, comments, questions. Obviously, it's sort of a, maybe not obvious, but yeah, I think it's becoming more and more of a sort of a hot topic, which is this question of binary versus Verkle and the viability of, I guess, ZK-based stateless clients in something like the next 3 to 5 years, let's say. And so, yeah, I just want to share my own personal viewpoint on it and see if it resonates with people, or if people might disagree with how I'm sort of framing it in my own head. And so I guess, yeah, the way that I'd summarize it is clearly today, Verkle is the most viable path to solving state growth and enabling stateless clients, but that's today. And of course, we need to keep an eye on the future. It's also quite clear that ZK tech is advancing rapidly, though how rapidly it's advancing and like what the trajectory is over the next 3 to 5 years will depend on who you ask. And reality is it's probably just pretty tough to predict the future. But yeah, I cannot argue that there's a lot of investment in that area, of course, and it wouldn't be a huge shock. I don't think it would be a big surprise to anyone here if we continue to see massive advancements. So yeah, I guess the obvious question is, like, what do we do given this dynamic, this sort of the dynamic behind Verkle is most ready today, but isn't shipping today. And by the time we are ready to ship Verkle on mainnet, it's at least possible that ZK stuff will be ready or close to ready. And our goal, of course, is to find the solution that's the best solution for the sort of medium or long-term health of the protocol. Obviously, we all have invested a lot of time and energy into Verkle, and so we have some biases there, but I think all of us would also agree that we want to find the best solution. So yeah, so I guess given all that, my perspective at least is that it makes sense for us to basically do 2 things. One is invest some amount of bandwidth into exploring binary trees. And of course, this is something like for Guillaume, going back to the future, he's done this quite a bit, and perhaps others here as well. So yeah, like, what does that mean exactly? Investing more bandwidth into exploring binary trees, I guess, like, that's where I'd love to get feedback, more thoughts. But sort of at the very least, making sure we understand like, what are the current benchmarks of ZK proving times? How many hashes a second? What are the metrics we want to be looking at? What are those benchmarks? On what hardware? Lots of questions. It's not necessarily super easy to answer. And then keeping an eye on this progress over the next 6 months to determine the viability, so that we get a more accurate sense where we are today and where we are going, and checking back on this. But yeah, like, beyond that, I guess, beyond understanding benchmarks, understanding sort of hardware requirements, this kind of stuff, I guess it's a bit TBD. Like, what does this mean for us to invest some amount of bandwidth into exploring binary? And then, so that's number 1. And then number 2, I think, I guess just as important, to the extent possible, we try to plan some of our development in a way that is most tree agnostic. And I've discussed this some with Guillaume and Ignacio, and like, I guess I don't yet know exactly what that looks like, or to the extent it's feasible. But just like, as an example, spending more time on the conversion, the actual state migration process, since presumably, as far as I understand, it would look similar whether we are migrating to binary or Verkle. Yeah, but would love to know what people think of all of this overall. I think, and I mentioned this to Guillaume, is like what we want to do is to keep our eyes open. We don't want to, I think, like, that's how we get to the best solution. And that's how we actually, at the end of the day, if we arrive at the conclusion that Verkle is the best solution, We want to have arrived there through, like, of course, like a transparent and like honest process, and like that will allow us to have our endorsement or our recommendation be the most what's the word I'm looking for, like most valid if we got there through like an actual evaluation process. So yeah, sorry if that was kind of a lot, but just wanted to, like, I guess in my own head, like, there's just been lots of conversations around this, and I would love if we don't, I think it's less productive if we spend the time debating this, like, binary's better, no, Verkle's better, and just kind of going back and forth, and more so, like, let's try to look at this. What are the metrics what are the metrics that we're looking at? And you know what, like, we're going to move forward in a more tree agnostic way, at least over the next 6 months, let's say, so we don't have to get bogged down in this debate every month. Anyways, so that's my thoughts, and would be curious if anyone has anything.
Just to add something quickly, we would like to update Verkle.info to. We're going to add a page regarding this so that people can track where we're at in our reflection, and of course contribute to it if they have something to say. Which we're no ZK expert. There's plenty of room for other people to give their input. So we'll be sharing it hopefully by the end of this week. There's document that was in the pipe that needs to be refreshed, but yeah, I hope we can do that by the end of the week.
Yep, that sounds good.
Well,
And
just to add one
go ahead.
bit, I would say that designing in a tree agnostic way, and I think in addition to that, like, leaving room for a fast follow is probably wise, because even if we determine that there is by the time we're ready to deliver Verkle, there's a path forward that is defensible and future proof, it's going to be add another X number of months or worse to the delivery. So what I would say is, in design consideration and in spec consideration, we should keep in mind a fast follow, like things like keeping around a pre-image store should be an expectation for Verkle. Like, if we intend to go Verkle, but we know that there's something that might want to follow that would be more future proof, just kind of setting the stage that we might be doing this transition one more time. So we don't want to have the pain of doing, pre-image store distribution and so forth again. So I can just setting that expectation, I think would help with a subsequent fast follow.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's hard to predict, I guess, if we will end up doing a fast follow or not. Like, let's say we do ship Verkle, what are the odds that we do a fast follow? But yeah, to your point, we can avoid a lot of potential pain if we just plan as if we assume as if we are doing a fast follow. If I understood correctly, and that makes sense. That makes sense to me. I guess one thought is that if it becomes obvious that a fast follow, or likely that we'll have a fast follow, then I think basically we'll get a lot of pushback. People say nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants 2 migrations. Like, let's just go right to ZK, or sorry, to binary. But yeah, like that will be something that will be, yeah.
And fast is a relative term too, right? I mean, a fast fork follow might be, 18 months, 2 years, who knows what that would be. But I think just setting the expectation that we need to leave the door open,
Right,
for being able to do this transition less painlessly on a subsequent iteration.
Yep, makes sense.
And just to add to this, the initial roadmap, I mean, this is something I've said multiple times, but just to make sure it's known, we, like, from the initial version of the roadmap was always like we would do Verkle for a while and then binary trees. So there was always we always kept in mind that the next process should always be faster and at least simpler.
Yep. I think, yeah, it's a good reminder, and we should continue to articulate that.
Yeah, and I just want to touch a bit more on the point of doing state tree agnostic progress and all that. I think that we have naturally reached a point where that is true, because I think mostly everybody already has a Verkle tree implementation, and most of the work that we were planning to do now was around state conversion, and 95% or even 100% of that EIP is agnostic to the target tree. And also all this pending discussion about pre-image distribution is basically the same problem for Verkle or for binary trees, because pre-images are for the Markov-Patricia tree. So all that thing is mostly the same. So I think that most of the pending work is actually on stuff that is tree agnostic. So that's pretty useful too. Maybe the part that is less agnostic is witness generations or cryptography optimizations for Verkle. So maybe we can hold a bit there. But yeah, 4762 is mostly the same. State conversion is mostly the same, and pre-image distribution is basically the same.
Yep, makes sense. Any other thoughts? Do people generally agree with, I don't know, what we've said so far, my framing of things? Anything I said disagree or not make sense?
One thing to add is we're talking about renaming this the stateless implementers call, maybe instead of the Verkle implementers call, to signal that we're looking into stuff. That Verkle is still the main avenue, but yeah, we're not shutting the door.
Any objections to the rename from Vic to Sick? If no, then I guess we'll move forward with the rebrand. Cool. Sick. Yeah, maybe we can relight some excitement. I think we've maybe we lost the Reth people over the past few weeks. Not to pick on them, but maybe we can get them back. Okay. Moving on then. Number 4, discuss deletions in Verkle. It's on you, Guillaume.
Oh yeah, so this is not something I'm pushing for. It's something that Peter and Gary, especially in the guest team, are pushing for. Their fear is that the fact we have no deletions is going to bloat the state. So I'm currently working on optimizing the storage cost. Sorry, the storage, like the serialization of the Verkle tree in the guest database to prove, well, to make a point, which can go either way. Either they're right and never deleting anything is going to bloat the state, in which case we should definitely consider deletion. Otherwise, if it shows that it's not a big problem, then I guess that's enough for me to push back against this desire. So at the core, there are 2 reasons. One of them, I think, is not. In my view, should not be the problem of the tree design. It's the fact that guess really doesn't make any difference between something that's like something that never existed or when a 0 was written. I think it could be solved at the database layer problem, which is what I'm working on to see if I can make it work. But the other, like the initial problem and the initial complaint, especially by Peter, is that the state is going to be very bloated if we do this. So I'm not saying we're changing the spec right now. I'm just saying like this is something that this is some strong pushback that I received last week. We might have to argument either way, and maybe if people have questions about why we need this, I'd be happy to answer them. But otherwise, are people for deletion, like introducing deletions? Are people strongly against it? There's a very good reason to be against it. It's to handle the conversion. because then you need to somehow flag that something was deleted from the Verkle tree and you should not go into the Merkle tree. So that's a complexity that that needs to be worked on. So that's my reason not to do it. I'm just curious if people have an opinion, or if if they would really like to do it, if they don't want to do it, etc., etc.
Looks like no strong opinions.
Yep.
Is there room for there to be a transition specific deletion behavior?
Yes. So that's exactly what they were suggesting, and I have to implement now. You would have, so at least in the guest code base, we have 3 trees. We have like the Merkle tree, we have the Verkle tree, and then we have this adapter tree, which is not really a tree. It's just doing the dispatching all the requests, so the writes and the reads. And this layer would be the one saving to the database where something got deleted, so that when you read it again, it will skip the MPT altogether. So there's a way to do this. It hasn't been implemented yet, so I don't know how much of how complex that approach is. I fear that it might be a bit complex, but if it works, then I guess that's another good reason to have deletions. No, there's an idea, no concrete code yet.
Okay. If nothing else on this topic, we can keep going. Agenda item 5. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
I saw a message. Didn't see who that was, but talked about state expiry. Oh yeah, get gender. So that's the other thing about, because the other argument is that not deleting helps with state expiry. Like Han created this EIP or at least came up with this idea to have state expiry based on this whole stateless model. Which is really good in my opinion. But then if you introduce deletion, you could not do that. The response by Peter and Gary, which is also completely fair, is that it's only a problem once you activate state expiry. So the idea would be to enable deletions up until the point we have state expiry, and then disable deletions and have state expiry.
But we then don't need deletions if we have state expiry.
Exactly. So that's when you disable them. Up until you get to that point, the state growth is a problem. So deletions exist. But once you have state expiry, you have a better or at least simpler approach to handle your state growth. So you disable deletion and you enable state expiry. And in fact, you need to disable deletions, because otherwise state expiry, like this model, is broken.
Maybe we go live with state expiry.
Yeah, we could do this, but that means it's going to imply more coding. So I expect ACD to push back on this. Oh, yeah, I see a message by Ignacio. Yes, it will increase. It will bloat the code size, sorry, the witness size a little bit, but we would be. I think if deletions don't happen that often, It's just about creating a list of locations that get deleted. So there will be a bit of bloat, but we believe we can make an efficient enough way of updating the witness format to handle that.
Cool. I guess we should keep going, stay on time. Yeah, so then if that's all good, next up is number 5, evaluating the Pectra impact of a few things in particular, those being 7702 and EOF, and a few others. But Ignacio, or does anyone else want to start here?
Yeah, I can mention that in the last days I've been reading in more detail the EOF EIPs to understand how like the new container and instructions might impact like the EIPs. So I basically went through all that and created a draft PR with the changes that I think are required. So I will share that in the chat. So, I mean, there's no rush for people to review this, but if anyone has EOF EIPs in their mind and want to kind of check if this makes sense, that's welcome. Nothing about these changes should feel entirely surprising. Feels like natural changes overall, considering all the new instructions that exist and some extra touching that we need to do in the container header and other sections in some instructions. But if you find anything surprising or anything missing, just feel free to create a comment there or pick me. So yeah, that's basically it.
Right, and I did have some notes because Matt from the guest team explained to me what 7702 entailed. So there's an issue on the Go Ethereum, like in my repo, Go Ethereum issues that explains that what 7702 does. There's a couple like I mean, compared to EOF, at least 7702 looks pretty simple. It's just about making sure, like I'm giving you the 5-second summary. You can have contracts that, accounts that delegate their, I don't know how to say that, but basically, when you do an operation on an account, it's a delegation that goes to another account. It's encoded by some field which is 0xEF01, so EOF is 0xEF00, and 0xEF01 is followed by an address that this contract delegates to. So that should be a contract with a code. So it's just about simply making sure that when you add something to the witness, you add the contract that the operation is delegated to instead of the account itself. Otherwise, the witness will be empty. So it does bloat the witness a little bit, but yeah, once again, it's not. I mean, you're paying for this, so 7702 is going to be a tad more expensive than it was, but that's also the case with EOF anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them, but that was more like a heads up.
Cool. If nothing else, shall we move on? Last up in the final. Oops, sorry. Someone say something.
No, I just answered your question. Yes, we can move on.
Yeah, cool, thanks. Last up, the Verkle sync and potentially related or included in this bucket is a spec change to add a hash of the proof to the EO block header.
Yeah, sorry, I'm confused. What is the spec change? I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I guess we kind of already touched on this. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, now I remember. Yes, of course. So yeah, once again, we discussed with the guest team last week how to make Go Ethereum be able to snap sync or Verkle sync. So there's already a model proposed by Tanishq, which is pretty much what we agreed on. A couple things were suggested by Peter. One of them is currently we don't add anything related to the proof to the block header. Peter wanted to be a bit more strict about witness validation. So it would be that even full nodes will have to validate witnesses and make sure that no extra data is being passed, like as a way to prevent people from bloating the witness with things that are indeed correct but are not necessary. So what Peter would like to do is basically flag a block that has too many leaves as invalid, even though it's correct in every other respect. And the other thing would be to because of course if we do it like currently, the witness is a sidecar currently. I mean the witness and proof. If we start introducing this rule, then we have to make the witness itself part of the block, because if I'm a dishonest a dishonest node, I would receive the honest block and then replace the proof with a bloated one to get the block declared as invalid when in fact the producer was honest. So that means that we would have to produce the proof in the block building cycle, and we would hash this proof and add it to the header. So that was one request. The other thing that Peter wanted, so have a snapshot that is per stem and not by the hash, like the traditional hash of like it currently is. So basically have a Verkle specific snapshot, but I think that's already what Tanishq is doing. There was another thing I'm forgetting. I mean, okay, these are the two main changes. I think, there was another detail, but it escapes me now. So, at some point we were talking about. Oh, sorry. Yes, there's another detail. Currently, we passed the pre-state and the post-state, the post values. That was meant as a way to make it easier for very, very light nodes who don't want to run the block to somehow trust that the data they've been given is correct. It takes roughly doubles the size of the witness. So Peter was especially, but other members gave some pushback. I never liked this idea to begin with. So my question was more like those who have thought about the sync. I already asked Tanishq this, but maybe there are others who were counting on those post values. We would be removing them if everybody is okay. Okay, so I still have to ask Dan Crud if he's okay with that, but I think there's a good agreement that it's taking space and not being really useful. At least, I mean, like Martin was saying, there's very light like VMs today, so you could totally execute a block even in a light client. That's not a problem. Another thing that escapes me again that I was just thinking. Oh yeah, it's the duration. How long you need to save the witness on your disk, right? So that's the other important thing. because you hash. Okay, so there are two things about this hash. You need to like when you build a block, you need to rebuild a witness to be able to hash it. Or Peter was saying after a while, like if the block is old enough, has enough confirmations, you could say you only verified the block until like a month ago, and before that, sorry, you verify the witness. Otherwise, you just trust the hash because if it was a month ago, presumably you're on the right chain. And the other thing he was saying is, we need to keep the witness, however, because he wants to be able to. So his use case is that he says when you sync, you have to trust the network. So, and then it's a manual verification. So it's up to you to verify that you have synced the right chain. So that's a manual process. Like he says, sync is a manual process. But there's the use case where you go on holiday for like 2 weeks. Your node dies day one, as it tends to do. And then, excuse me, and then you need to be able to replay every single block so to catch up by replaying every block. And for this, you need the witnesses. Like if you're a stateless client, you need to be able to download the witnesses. So what Peter wants to do is keep the witnesses on disk for a certain period of time to be able to what he calls a headless to perform a headless sync or automated in a way that unlike the initial sync where you are here and you verify that you're on the right chain, if you have a power cut or an internet cut and you come back online, you have to make sure that you don't have to make sure the node has to be able to recover by itself without you watching it or manually doing that verification. So that's the argument. That means we're not saving as much space as we could, but we would keep the witnesses for 1 month, which I calculated if you keep the post value would add an extra 60 gigabytes, which is not light. But yeah, that's basically the ideas that we discussed last week. So I don't know if there's feedback, questions, or if everybody seems to be fine with that. But I mean, so keeping the witnesses, that would be a guess thing. Everybody's welcome to do the same thing, of course. But that's what guess would do. And if there are questions or pushback or feedback, I'm interested.
Wouldn't keeping block witnesses back just to the latest finalized block be sufficient? Do we really need to keep a rolling month? Is there a reason to keep them beyond last finalized?
Yes. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, I'm not convinced, but Peter is really insisting on this. The reason is that yes, if your node crashes, for example, and you're gone on a 2-week, 3-week holiday, you come back, you definitely passed finalization, and you need to be able to rejoin the network automatically. So without that, the cutoff of 1 month is that typically everybody's holiday is less than a month, so that's why. Like I said, you're welcome not to do this if you don't want to. You can keep it 2 weeks. You can keep it all the way to finalization, but that's the reasoning behind it, why we want to keep so much. So Portal Network is definitely a plan for that. And in fact, Peter said, that would be a perfect use case for Portal Network. But my understanding is that, and Milos is here, my understanding was the Portal people themselves were thinking that was not a good use case.
I'm not sure. I think it might be a use case to keep witness there, together with many other stuff that are on the Portal network, but it was never kind of discussed in details. But I would say it makes sense.
Yeah, so that would be a super great use case in that. Yeah, that would be a great option.
All right, well, we are just about at time. There's nothing else in the last minute or so. We can end there. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you guys
Thanks.
soon.
Bye.
Thanks
See ya.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.